Thank you for joining us. This webinar will start in about 5 minutes.
Reminder, Carlotta, Steve, Elliot, open your chats.
Thank you for joining us. This webinar will start in about 3 minutes. Thank you for joining us. We'll start the webinar in about 1 minute. And welcome to the Hirshberg Entrepreneurship Institute's webinar series, Yes, We Can, Perspectives and Strategies for Success in 2021. Today, we're presenting Carlotta Mast from New Hope Network and Steve Fritsch from the National Marketing Institute. Today, we'll take advantage of the Q&A and the Q&A function on your webinar screen. You'll see that on the bottom of your screen. When you click on that button, a window will pop up and you can type your question on the bottom and hit send, and we'll see those questions. Please reserve your questions for the Q&A. We'll use the chat, but that will just be if you have any technical issues or if you want to get some extra information from us or from other attendees. And just before we get started, we'd like to just poll you just to find out some more information. And if you would like to, we just want to find out some information about you. So what is your main product focus? We got quite a few people coming in. all the different things that people are involved with. And we'll stop the poll in about 3 seconds if you haven't voted yet. Great, thank you. So we'll share those results.
Wow.
Great. And now I'd like to introduce Gary Hirschberg.
Thank you, Carlene. Thank you, everybody, for being back with us. That's a pretty interesting chart. That's a lot of surprises for me in there. To remind you, before we begin, last week, we invited one of our HEI presenters to make a 5-minute pitch. He did that for his online wine club and wine business for your company events. We didn't actually have anyone who wanted to apply to pitch at the beginning of today's webinar. We do have a couple applying for the next couple of weeks. So please, if you are interested in pitching to this audience here, your service, your product, pop it in, go on our website, and we'll post that at the end, where you do that. But go to the HEI website and you can let us know. So I'm excited about today. You know, if you follow, again, the trajectory of our series up till now, we began with sort of planning, adapting to the new COVID environment, being capital efficient with my colleague Elliot, who's back to join us as a co-moderator today. We then talked to a number of customers, distributors, retailers, to try to understand the new world from their perspective. We obviously got into e-com, which is now table stakes, right? It's everyday currency for us all. And today we have two really well-connected, very well-informed, very active followers of consumer and industry trends out there. I mean, to state the obvious, data is gold now. It's always been gold. You know this. The business of running your business is about making choices, having to make tough choices with whatever information that is at your fingertips. But I would say that now, in a SKU challenged, customer service challenged, uber competitive world, that your ability to activate around real-time relevant trend data, be it about the sectors that you're in, about the customers you're trying to reach, or the consumer who ultimately we work for. I would say that it's probably more crucial now than ever, because again, our dollars are limited in terms of the overwhelming number of priorities out there. There's a lot of stupid money being spent and thrown, as we know, because there's a lot of desperation on the part of investors and others to buy their way out there or throw money at the trade. And so today we have two ideal speakers for us. So I've already mentioned Elliot. You've all heard Elliot Began, who will be joining me as a moderator. Just to remind those of you who don't know, Elliot coaches, counsels through TIG, a lot of early stage companies, getting them through the sort of valley of death or a mountain of success, or depending on your perspective. So I think it's really important to have Elliot's lens as we talk with our two experts. We're going to start today with Carlotta Mast, who I'm fairly sure needs no introduction. She's the Senior Vice President and Market Leader for New Hope Network, which of course is our co-sponsor of this series. And we've been very grateful for Carlotta and her team's support. And of course, last week you heard from one of her colleagues on the subject of storytelling. Carlotta, the reason I say Carlotta doesn't probably need much introduction is she's a very frequent speaker at natural products industry events and conferences, has been interviewed about our industry in just countless major media networks. She's also had her fingers in lots of other pots. She's been the board chair and a former board member since 2014 of Naturally Boulder. She's on the boards of Naturally Bay Area, the Climate Collaborative, Organic Voices, and the Supplement Online Wellness Library. She also co-founded a paleo snack company. So she's been over here on this side as well, called Holy Bites, which was sold in 2016, is now marketed under the Thrive Tribe brand. But Carlotta wears many, many hats at New Hope, which is why they keep loading more and more responsibilities on her. But her main thread, I think, because it's also your passion, Carlotta, is trend data, just keeping us all, keeping up on what's going on out there and keeping us all educated. So thank you for joining us. And before Carlotta begins, I also want to introduce Steve French. He's a senior vice president at the Natural Marketing Institute, not national, although it is national. In fact, it's international. But NMI is a leading strategic marketing consultancy research firm that specializes in whole living and the wellness market. They're part of Research America, family of companies. Steve recently won the award for top 100 marketing and advertising leaders in the world. Like I said, they're international, and has over 25 years of experience in strategic marketing, brand building, market research, and management experience with hundreds and hundreds of clients. His personal specialties are healthy aging, wellness, environmentalism, social responsibility. So again, well-informed, well-tuned. And again, many of us know Steve's former colleague, Mary Ellen Molyneux, who's been with HEI many times over the years. So Steve, thank you for also joining us, and welcome. The format for today will be, we'll begin with Carlotta. She has a presentation for us, and as ever, Elliot and I will do our best not to be rudely interrupting you, but you know, all bets are off. You know us. And then we'll pivot to Steve. Same, apologies in advance if we break your flow with some urgent question. And then we will, again, as Carlene said, invite everyone to use the Q&A function to please get your questions for my three colleagues and me. And of course, use the chat as well. If you have a service or product or comment or link that you want to share with our now roughly 160 colleagues on here this afternoon, please use the chat for that. But get your questions to Elliot and me in through the Q&A. So with that, Carlotta, welcome. The floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Gary. I'm really, really happy to be here, and it's just been awesome to see what you've been able to do with these webinars and your entrepreneur boot camp, and just helping to keep the community together and entrepreneurs informed. So Gary introduced me, and as some of you likely know, New Hope, maybe how you know us is through our Natural Product Expo shows. And so I just wanted to start with a quick update. Obviously, we've had quite the headwinds in our business with COVID and being in the event space. And many of you were possibly there last year with Expo West when COVID hit our industry and hit Expo West in a big and very, very fast way. And so this year we had to make the difficult decision that we would not be able to host Expo West in person in Anaheim, which is really sad, but we are hosting a virtual Expo West as part of our virtual event series this year. We've got opportunities for exhibitors to connect with retailers year round in a virtual setting through our Spark Change platform, as well as we have an Expo West virtual event May 24th through the 27th, which will be completely focused on connecting retailers with new products, allowing product discovery, and then, you know, creating those one-on-one connection points between exhibiting companies and retailers. We're also really excited about, and I think the signs are really pointing in our favor to be able to convene the industry in September in Philadelphia for Natural Products Expo East. You know, with the vaccine rollout picking up speed and, you know, some good signs headed our way, we're thinking that this could be the time that the industry is finally able to get together after, you know, it'll be almost, you know, 2 years. So really excited about that. And so happy to answer questions, but just wanted to share that update. And I wanted to start with this quote. Some of you may have seen this in the media, but Boris Johnson, I think this is my first time ever quoting him, but he said, "The crocus of hope is poking through the frost." And it really does feel like that, certainly for our business, but I think for all of us who have faced some difficult challenges with COVID that have continued into 2021. But there is light at the end of the tunnel, and it looks really bright. As I'll talk about, the data actually shows that our industry has done really well actually in COVID, despite the challenges. And we have a very bright future because we're positioned where the consumer is headed. And with that, last year was a record year for the natural and organic industry. Overall industry sales grew almost 13% to $259 billion. We're now on track to surpass $300 billion in sales and total industry sales by 2023. In 2019, sales were growing at about 5.5% for the industry. So this is a huge boost. And of course, it was driven by the fact that more people staying at home, cooking meals, thinking more about health and wellness and the things that they needed to invest in to support their overall health and wellness. And it has really driven tremendous growth for our industry, which is really good news. Food and beverage is where we saw a lot of strong growth. It is the largest category for total industry sales. So natural, organic, and functional food and beverage products drive 70% of our sales annually. And last year, food and beverage grew 13% to $186 billion. Standout categories for growth, of course, pantry staples, baking supplies, frozen, meat, poultry, fish, all did really well last year as categories for our business. The categories plant-based also really, really strong growth, anything, plant-based meat and dairy alternatives. Where we saw slower growth and maybe even some retraction was in, the grab and go prepared foods sections for retailers. And so, bars, nutrition bars, that was a category that, we are not on the go. We're not grabbing food to be, out and about. And so those categories did not fare as well last year. Organic, it's been in previous times when we've been, impacted the way the economy has been impacted by COVID. Our industry is doing well, but the economy overall took some big hits as a result of COVID, and certainly unemployment rates soared. And in previous times, organic has often taken a hit during unsettled economic times, but that was not the case in 2020. Organic food and beverage sales grew 13% to $47.9 billion last year. Every category in organic did well. Even dairy, which had been facing some headwinds with oversupply prior to 2020, saw good growth last year. And as we all know, organic is now so mainstream. Every kind of retailer sells organic products. You can find organic everywhere. And the fact that people were turning to organic as they were stocking up during the pandemic really, I think, bodes well for the future of organic. We've got wind in our sails, and I think a lot of continued work to do to just make sure that consumers understand what organic means and the benefits of organic. But there's some, obviously great work happening through Gary's Organic Voices group and others. But I'm really excited about what we're going to see with organic. Functional food and beverage, strong growth last year, not as strong as we saw in organic. It grew 9.4% to $78 billion. And part of this was, again, impact in that grab and go beverages and other products didn't fare as well last year because we were mostly staying at home. But still, the fact that you see this kind of growth in functional food and beverage shows that consumers are really seeing that food can be medicine, and they're looking for those functional health benefits in the products that they buy. Last year, the functional ingredients that really, drove the most interest were collagen, mushrooms for stress and stress support and sleep support, adaptogens, nootropics, healthy fats. And we're seeing functional products in just about every category now. And so overall, natural and organic did grow faster than conventional food and beverage sales. But interesting, last year, typically we see a big differential between the growth of natural and organic and the growth of conventional. But given the fact that more people were stocking up their homes to cook at home and make sure that they had all of the CPG products that they would need, you saw that gap really closed a lot last year. Because of that very trend. We'd still expect that as we head out of the pandemic, that natural and organic will continue to really outpace conventional food and beverage sales growth overall, because again, the things happening in our industry, natural, organic, cleaner, better for you products are really positioned where the consumer wants to be positioned. Through my presentation, I just wanted to share some, brand spotlights, brands that have really taken advantage of some of the trends happening through COVID as maybe some inspiration for some of the entrepreneurs and brands here. Tea Drops is a company that I got to know. Actually, on Monday, I was doing a panel during International Women's Day with Sashi Chandran, who is the founder of Tea Drops. And she told this really cool story that I wanted to share. But, as COVID hit, it really did impact her revenues early on. And she was looking for innovative ways to bring new products in that could bring in some new revenue. And so she just started doing Google research on what were the latest tea trends. And she just kept seeing pop up. People were lamenting that they couldn't get their favorite bubble tea because their boba tea shop was closed, or they were trying to make it at home. So she quickly launched a do-it-yourself boba tea kit that quickly became the company's hero product for 2021 or 2020, and brought in some much needed incremental revenue. And so that her customers could enjoy their favorite bubble tea drink without having to go to a restaurant or a boba tea shop. And it's that kind of innovation that has helped so many entrepreneurs get through this pandemic. So switching focus to supplements, this is a category that really saw so much growth last year, and just really was well aligned with where consumers were looking for products that would support immunity and products that would support their overall health and wellness. And so we now see that the supplement category is a $56 billion market in the US. And we saw growth across every category, definitely in immunity supplements, but just even in general health supplements like multivitamins were up significantly last year. When we look at immunity supplements, sales were up 52.2% to $5.2 billion last year for immunity-focused supplements. And what we're finding is that COVID is really driving consumers to think about immune support well beyond the typical cold and flu season, and to really be thinking about how they can support their overall immunity year-round. And I think for our industry, it will be interesting as we see the impacts of long COVID on people, and as people are trying to deal with the inflammation that is now in their body and trying to just deal with the effects of long COVID. It could create some interesting opportunities for our industry and the way we think about immune support and the way we think about inflammation support. One of the things we have been doing over the last year is with our partner Suzy, we've been doing consumer research to just understand how consumer perceptions, attitudes, behaviors are changing during COVID. And one of our latest studies found that 50% of natural channel shoppers, when we do this research, we look at all shoppers and then we break out natural channel shoppers, but 51% of natural channel shoppers plan to increase their supplement usage even after they get the vaccine. So they're seeing that supplements can support their overall health and wellness, and they're willing to make those long-term investments in using these products, even once COVID is hopefully long in the rearview mirror. Another brand that I wanted to spotlight is Nordic Natural. This is obviously a legacy natural brand, but some of the things that they're doing as their supplement sales have really been benefiting from the changes in consumer demand is, they've really looked at how can they then invest in helping to make supplements, particularly vitamin D supplements, more accessible to all Americans. Research shows that 82% of Black Americans are deficient in vitamin D. Many of us have vitamin D deficiency, but it's particularly chronic in communities of color, particularly in Black communities. And so they've launched this program, the Health Equity and Advocacy Project, to address this issue with education and advocacy to get more supplements to communities of color, particularly vitamin D supplements. And I think it's a really great way that a brand is investing in a solution that is needed that will only support its own long-term health as a supplement brand. When we look at natural living, the natural living category, this is one, it's still the smallest category. This includes personal care products, household products, pet products, and it grew 9.5% to $24 billion last year. And it was really household cleaning products that drove the growth for this category. Cleaning products were up 20%, not surprising. Many of us spending a lot of time cleaning our houses and washing our hands all the time. But we also saw pet products has remained a strong category for years, and it was also continued to be strong last year. It was the personal care space that, although it was up a little bit from the growth in 2019, it didn't have the same levels of growth as household products and pet products last year. So when we look at where people are shopping for natural and organic products, obviously COVID really accelerated online sales, e-commerce sales for our industry. And last year, e-commerce, drove nearly 60%, or it had sales growth of nearly 60% last year. And clearly this was due to consumers gravitating to online for safety and convenience, and then ordering through Instacart and having their groceries delivered. But we really think that a lot of this growth that we see in e-commerce is going to be some permanent behavior shifts. When we did do a survey asking, how people were changing, where they were buying their grocery products between April and November, you see that there was an increase from April to November in just almost every channel, but certainly strong growth in buying groceries online and ordering groceries for store and curb pickup. And so we anticipate that this behavior is here to stay for many, many consumers. And with that, I also wanted to note that although total organic and e-commerce sales are expected to double between 2018 and 2023, it's important to note that the vast majority of sales are still coming through brick and mortar retail, especially mass market retail. So as a brand, it's really important to not count out brick and mortar retail, but to think of a smart omni-channel strategy that really blends digital with brick and mortar in a way that allows your customers to have a very seamless shopping experience, whether they're in the store or they're ordering online or they're doing a combination of both, because we anticipate that brick and mortar will stay very, very dominant into well into the future, and especially in the next 5 years. Another brand spotlight that I wanted to point out is Odomot. Many of you may know Odomot because the founder, Andrew Suzuka, is one of those entrepreneurs that is out there hustling. He hustled through 2020, and through the pandemic, he was able to get his product on retail shelves throughout the country, national distribution at Whole Foods. He's now in Sprouts. He's also mastered QVC as a sales channel. He's on QVC quite often. And he's also leaned into really innovative digital marketing strategies targeted to both kids and their parents for his organic tomato sauce. And so I encourage you, if you're looking for interesting ways to drive awareness and distribution for your products, check out what Andrew is doing with Odomot. One of the things he did is he worked with Roblox to incorporate Odomot into a new Roblox game, part of the Roblox game. And if you have, young kids or teenage kids like I do, they spend a lot of time playing Roblox. Finally, I wanted to share this quote. It's from the inauguration, and I think that for our industry, this says a lot about where we have to go for the future, because there is a lot of light for us, but we have to be brave enough to see it, and we have to be brave enough to be it. Sharing a little bit more data, again, trends are in our favor. Even through the pandemic, consumers remain strongly aligned with the values that have grown natural and organic. They care about even paying more for environmentally responsible products, for socially responsible products. They want to prioritize brands that really maximize the health and nutrition of their products. They want to buy brands that are associated with a mission. And that hasn't wavered from our research in 2017 to when we just conducted the same research in 2021. And I know Steve will talk a lot more about that. I've shared this before, but our research has shown that since COVID, consumers are saying that personal health and wellness is more important than ever. 77% saying it was more important in 2020 than in 2019. And they're finding ways to invest in their own personal health and wellness. And, that's including eating healthy food, that's including taking dietary supplements. And so these things are in our favor, but we also know that during COVID, there was this quest for health and wellness that certainly supported our industry from a sales growth standpoint. But then we also saw consumers doing things that weren't necessarily best for their overall health and wellness. They were turning to alcohol and to food to cope with the stresses of COVID and quarantine. Binge drinking, for example, up 41% among women since the start of the pandemic. Other research is showing that people are eating more junk food, they're eating more sugar. Maybe it's organic, but it's still, more sugar. They are exercising less, they're sleeping less, they're feeling more anxious. And for me, I think it points to an opportunity for our industry to really think about how we can support people in returning to healthier habits, because we know they want them, but how do we make it easier for them?
Hey, Carlotta.
And
sorry.
yeah.
I want to can you go back 3 slides? I don't want to interrupt, but I also don't want to lose this right here. I just thought it was interesting. I have a question for you. The one place that dropped was animal welfare. And I wondered if that's, and maybe Steve will get into this too. I wonder if that's just because more people have actually already taken care of that by pivoting to plant-based. Is that a good interpretation, or do you have a different one?
That's been part of my interpretation as well, is that I think people now have it's easier to actually, act out on those desires to support overall animal welfare. I don't know if Steve will talk about that, but it's interesting. It's really the one place where we saw the biggest drop from 2017 to 2021. But it's still, more than half of consumers that we're surveying. And when we do these surveys, it's really surveying the general US population. So it's not just natural shoppers here, but that 53% are concerned about animal welfare remaining in 2021.
What's interesting, again, in drilling, and I realize you don't have time but to do more than touch the tops of the trees, but just being associated with a lot of the plant-based alternatives, the 2 drivers that we believe in these businesses is one, climate footprint, environmental impact. Obviously, you move away from animals, you do reduce. And then second is cruelty. So it just, I was concerned. This jumped out at me, but anyhow, keep going with your flow. I just wanted to call it out.
Well, as someone who has moved to plant-based about 4 years ago for those very reasons, more for ethical reasons, that stands out for me as well.
Yeah.
So just a quick brand spotlight. I'm sure many of you know Your Super, but I think they're an amazing brand that has really positioned supplement powders as these nutrient-dense whole foods that support vitality and vibrant health. And they're really bringing younger consumers into the supplement category. And, there's no issue with pill fatigue here, which you often see with supplements. And I think if you want to see another brand that is really so effectively use the power of digital storytelling and also using clean plant-based ingredients, this is a great one to look at. Just quickly, more of our research, we shared this last year, but, COVID is also making environmental health more important to consumers. 67% of the 1,000 consumers we surveyed said it was more important in 2020 than it was in 2019. And these are some of the ways that they are looking to support their environmental issues. Of course, buying more plant-based foods, buying responsibly sourced meat, seafood, dairy, paying attention to food waste, that's a big one. And that's where the next brand spotlight comes in. I'm sure many of you also are very familiar with Renewal Mills, but this is such an innovative company. They've created a proprietary technology that can turn just about any food byproduct into nutritious ingredients. And so right now they're focused on partnering with producers of plant-based milks, soy milk, almond milk, and then they're upcycling that into flours and baking mixes. And the level of collaboration that they are doing with other brands and just how they are positioning food as a way you can actively fight climate change from your kitchen is so on target with where I think consumers are going to be wanting to focus in the kinds of brands they want to support. So really another very innovative company. I wanted to conclude
Carlotta,
on diversity. Oh, sure.
My turn, just because I don't want Gary to be the only one to interrupt you. But just in terms of upcycling in general, anything that you're seeing there in terms of the growth and the awareness of all the upcycled products that are beginning to show up across categories?
Well, I don't have sales growth data, but that's something that I can pull, and I'd like to, because it's been unbelievable to see how many new brands are hitting the market with upcycled innovation or innovation that utilizes upcycling. Renewal Mills is, they've been around for a couple of years, but there's so many in different product categories. Beverages, obviously, here, flours and baking mixes, but you've got frozen products, and I think it's really exciting to see this innovation because, again, given how serious our food waste problem is and what a solution addressing that can be to climate change, I think it's aligning very much with growing consumer awareness about needing to address climate change.
That 36% who are aware of food waste, and we're seeing it, so many categories from spirits to pet food. So yeah, just wanted to throw it out there. Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah, no, I'm glad you called it out. So, on diversity, this is our big opportunity as an industry. And it's really not only making sure that we have a diverse industry, it's really ensuring that everybody is included to be at the table and to be part of the dance. And we will thrive as an industry with that. I've shared this data before, but we obviously have so much work to do when it comes to diversity and inclusion. Knowing that Black, Indigenous, Latinx, Asian, and other people of color currently make up only 27% of our consumer base. We have so much work to do there, and there's a huge opportunity there, especially if we want to stay on pace with how diverse the overall US population is becoming. And if we don't stay on track, we will miss the opportunity to serve this market. And to do that, of course, we have to make sure that our leadership is diverse. Right now, in our industry, it's still industry leadership teams and boards are predominantly made up of white men, according to a survey that New Hope and Jedi Collaborative did in 2019. And, we see that only 2% of our company leaders and board leaders are Black professionals. We have a lot of work to do there so that not only are we bringing on the diversity, but we're really ensuring that everyone is included in the leadership, and we will all benefit as a result of that. And so it's been really cool to see, more BIPOC entrepreneurs enter our space with really innovative products. I'm sure many of you know Pertite Spencer. She's formerly with Spins and just last week went full-time to work on her food startup, AO Foods, which is bringing the foods of West Africa to the frozen aisles of Whole Foods markets and other retailers nationwide. And the level of innovation that this company is bringing and that Pertite and her husband are bringing, we need to see more of this, and we need to do everything we can to support this. I share this from my friends at Spins. Our consumers want us to be doing this. They want to support diverse brands. They want to support brands owned by LGBTQ community owners. They want to support women-owned brands. And so not only will we see growth from that, but again, the innovation and our ability to stay on track with serving more equitably in a more accessible way, a diversified America, that this is our opportunity. And so there's some cool groups popping up in our space, which hopefully many of you know about. Project Potluck, included Jedi Collaborative, that are all focused on fostering greater justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion in the natural and organic market. I'm happy to connect you with any of these or share any more information. I'm a Jedi Collaborative co-founder. And with that, that's my presentation. Sorry to go over a little bit.
No worries. We made you go over. Thank you, Carlotta. Steve, let's just go right to you. It's got to unmute you yourself.
Yeah, I'll be there in 1 second.
Okay.
We there?
You're there.
All right. As Gary mentioned, Steve French, Senior Vice President of Natural Marketing Institute. A lot of you know us, we've been around 30 years. My co-partners, Michael and Mary Ellen Molyneux, I think spent time with Gary on the West Coast, perhaps in communal living, but that's another whole story. We won't even talk about how long ago that is, but regardless, our foundation in really helping to bring the insights that Gary mentioned that are so vital to helping mainstream natural and organic and fortified and supplements and green cleaning and that's just across consumer packaged goods as we work with many others in our sustainability practice. You know, we work with hotels and transportation and all kinds of other verticals, which makes it very, very interesting with the cross challenge here and so on. But basically, Michael and Mary Ellen decided to retire last year, so we merged with a company, Research America. Research America basically took us from our staff tenfold. We now have 14 offices located nationwide, and I'll just give you a quick preview on the next page there. But for those of you not familiar with NMI, we've been around since 1990. Best way to think about us is a hybrid strategic marketing consultancy and market research firm. But what makes us different is our sole mission, our sole focus is on the world of health, wellness, sustainability, and what we call healthy aging or whole living. And it's a more holistic, aspirational look at wellness and includes things like purpose and meaning and financial health and things like that. Not going to get into that platform during this session, but it's perfectly aligned with COVID and so on. It is called our Healthy Living project that we'll be doing in 2021. And so we work with hundreds of clients across the globe. And what the merger with Research America does is it makes us one of the largest, fastest growing market research firms in the world. I'm not going to go through this entire list and so on, but if you're looking to do any survey work, we have sensory labs in Orlando for kitchens. We have focus group facilities now. Can do all kinds of qualitative or quantitative market research, whether it be on a B2B or a B2C basis. Obviously, the qualitative we're doing these days is more online, but have a unique platform there. And then we're basically taking the world of data, and data is data, but if you don't put some rigor behind it and some science, we've actually just acquired our 17th company last month based in behavioral science. So it has a better prediction on all the things that we're looking for. Who's going to not only be your customer today, but your customer tomorrow? What is the industry going to look like post COVID? Whatever it may be, because as Carlotta mentioned, what consumers are saying these days in terms of their health, and I care more about my health and wellness, is not being reflected in any behavior. There's not one behavior, and she mentioned a lot of them. That I think one that wasn't on there was use of tobacco up 20%. We're also seeing a net weight gain since March of 2019 of over 10 pounds per average American. So what's going to happen there is a good example of taking what we're dealt with the pandemic is turning these challenges into opportunities. So a good example would be, let's look at what typically happens in January, right? It's big weight management, weight loss season. Well, that's going to be turbocharged in likely 3 months from now. As most of America tries to put on a bathing suit or a short sleeve shirt or whatever it is and says, uh-oh, I got a little problem here. I have two choices. I could buy a larger item, or I need to lose some weight. That's just one example of trying to anticipate what's going to happen within the market. So I sort of segued at the beginning here, but I think most would agree, or at least understand what I'm saying. But this whole area of consumers saying one thing and doing another is the biggest say-do gap that I've ever seen in my 30 years within the industry, and we'll get there. But there has to be proper messaging and targeting and so on to get consumers to say, hey, that binge drinking really isn't the right thing to do. The vaccine will affect that and everything else. So on to my focus of the deck that I have prepared. It's really based on two of our databases. And so for 21 years, we're going to field our 22nd annual health and wellness study, which is an annual tracker of general population US adults, probably the richest source of information. We've run this every year on general population. So we can go back 20 years and use predictive analysis and advanced stat work and look at the real question is what's next. I think a lot of us would say, well, plant-based is new, but it's not. It's almost like what is old, or what's old is new again. So it's very interesting to look back at these cycles. The same thing happens in other market segments like supplements and so on. But it's a very interesting source of information, along with our supplement study, which is now run in over 30 countries that I'll touch on. The focus is more on food and beverage. However, we do work across industries and so on, but I see from the initial poll that about 75% are in food and bev. So this should be most relevant to all. As Carlotta mentioned, if you look at survey data, and this is over the past 10 years, basically this is American general population adults stating it's extremely very important to lead a healthy, balanced lifestyle. I think most of us would generally agree with that. However, it hasn't gone up that much from on a GP, which is Gen Pop basis. It only went up from 69 to 70%. That's really not a statistical difference. What's happened is there's been a huge increase from the millennials. And for those of us that are older Americans, and we use that term lightly, we are astonished to understand that millennials are now in their 40s. But it is very important to recognize that without the millennials adopting this whole notion of health and wellness and balance and body, soul, mind, whatever it may be, without their adoption, I think the industry would have been at risk. So the good news is that these millennials and early indications are that they're even more passionate about some of the elements of the industry. Now they are also carrying some burdens that let's just say boomers didn't have, high levels of student debt and things like that. So, I mean, there is a careful balance, but that needs to be kept in mind. But it's very good to see, along with that adoption. The same thing has happened with supplements. The growth is driven from millennials. So if we ask the question in general, then we ask how they do it, right? So how do you maintain a healthy, balanced lifestyle? Is the next obvious question if you're talking to somebody. So there's a couple of things happening here. One, you can see the relative importance of each one of those factors. So it ranges from getting enough sleep on the top to the usage of alternative healthcare professionals on the bottom. You can read faster than I can talk, and you can see how that breaks down there. But there's a whole bunch of health issues and medical conditions, whether it be sleep, mental attitude. This ties back with some of the things Carlotta was saying also. And see in what's highlighted in green is I just took out food and beverage and said, okay, where does food and beverage fall in this more holistic range of different modalities of health and wellness? Because you have exercise on there and all kinds of other things. But first is the overall consumption of healthy and nutritious foods. That's a 73%. Maintaining a balanced diet. So those are primary drivers: health, balance, and things with that. Then you get into natural and organic. But what's interesting about both natural and organic are the high growth rates. And those growth rates are very significant in what we've been seeing. So again, you can say sleep's on the top, but sleep is not growing as much because it has been so important. Now, if you take a look at the same measures I just mentioned on the previous page, and then you look at that across generations, there's really no difference about the general notion of healthy, nutritious food. But if you look at natural and organic, it's the younger consumer. Again, good news in terms of bringing that younger consumer along. We're even starting to see the alpha generation, which is behind iGen or Gen X or Gen Z, depending on what you call it. We're going to be expanding our research next year or this year to include consumers 12 plus because they're having such an impact on food choices. Especially they are going to be the activist generation, starting basically the young 12 up. And they will fight the primary grocery shopper, mom or dad or whoever it is, and they'll go on strike if you don't feed them that food at the table. I mean, they're just going to have that mentality. So it's definitely important. Young is good. It's good for the industry. It's good for opportunities, and it's good for a lot of you on the phone. So think young. If you look at USDA or organic. This is basically a trended, what we would call household penetration of of organic foods from 2011 to 2020. So what we've seen is we've gone basically from 5 in 10 Americans to 7 in 10 Americans. That's some nice, tremendous growth, right? You have 20% and 50 is 40% growth over almost a 10-year time frame. I think Wall Street would take that. What's happened though is that it's been stagnant for the past 6-7 years. So there is an opportunity. This is just household penetration numbers. So they could have bought these particular respondents could have bought 1 item, or they could be buying 30 items a week. What this would likely tell you, if we overlaid it with SPINS data, is the biggest opportunity here is to take light to moderate users and increase their usage. So the opportunity is frequency. It's most consumers have heard about it. Yes, there are some that are reluctant. That's that 30% of America. But the whole strategy should be on frequency of consumption. That would perhaps lead you away from, let me use a mainstream example of Tabasco sauce. Just for lack of a better example, I mean, the frequency of use of that is, once every 9 months or whatever it is. So use my products, but more importantly, use them more often. And messaging, I would urge many of you that are starting up to talk about ways in which to align with their lifestyle. Now we need to think about today's lifestyle and post-pandemic lifestyle, because even if we're 6-9 months out from post-pandemic, by the time you get where you want to be, it may be a totally different mindset. But I think I'm off topic a little bit. Natural foods, much higher and much steadier. But the same thing applies. You still have a portion of America that states they haven't used natural foods. Now you can do simple math. I'll just use 20% of America, which is 50 million US adults. I mean, that's not a small number. I would say that what this chart shows you is that 20% of America doesn't even know what a natural food is. They've likely used it because they use, mainstream brands like Heinz ketchup, right? But they don't know what natural foods is. So there's an opportunity for education. Since FDA has been on public comment for 37 years on natural foods, I figure we're going to go to our grave with that there. So it's up to us as an industry to educate not only the natural food shopper, which probably understands it a lot more, but general population America on what is natural and what are the benefits and so on, and staying within obvious regulatory parameters. Now this gets really interesting. We also break out the type of products that consumers are using. And I forgot to mention before that this is all channels. This doesn't matter whether they got it at a small independent health and natural food store or Costco or Amazon or a farmer's market or in other industries, it could be spas and salons and gyms and so on. So this is irregardless, it's channel agnostic is probably the best way to say it. So this is 2020 data. So we're comparing 2020, and this was in October. So we were definitely in the midst of pandemic, right? 66% of America, 2/3 of America saying they use organic produce, up 24%. So that shows some spike. And yes, that's a lot of farmers markets and things like that. Carlotta showed a chart in terms of what's happening in the world of sustainability, and we've sort of made a shift from global to local. We care much more about our local communities and those that things that we can see and know about, rather than some more global issues, which are definitely worthy, but some things such as global hunger or overpopulation or things have actually decreased in terms of consumer concern. So you can see organic produce up, packaged foods up, and you can see how the other categories break out. They're all very nice, impressive gains. Some of them align very closely with what Carlotta mentioned. And I think, just one comment here, the point of entry into organic is produce. So if you have a packaged food item, if you can partner, connect, whatever it may be, with an organic produce folks on social media, for example, and I'm just making something up, that would be a good way to get the word out, because that's where consumers are starting. This actually goes back to Gary, the question in terms of linking back to animal welfare and things like that. It's not necessarily identified on the sheet, but I have another page if we have time with Q&A. But this list here is basically a first tier list, meaning there's just as many on the bottom of this, which I'm not going to show. This is what's important when we ask general population America why they choose certain food and beverage products. Now, how we talk to clients about this is there's conventional reasons for purchase, and then there's secondary. As I think we all know in the food business, if it wasn't for taste, value, and nutrition, along with convenience, those are the four tenets. For the first time in 2020, nutrition is now more important than convenience. That was a milestone. Convenience always used to be towards the top. But taste is number one, nutrition is number two, convenience is number three, and value for the money is number four. If you can't do all four of those, I would say, you may want to think your mission and so on. What has gone up greatly is fresh and less processed, which I think is normal here. It ties back into transparency and everything going on there. And then we have no hormones. We have natural in there, no hormones, no synthetic pesticides, and so on. But you can see the notion of not only are we talking about the health of an individual here, but we're talking about the health of the planet. Yeah. So I think, I'm sure Gary has talked about this many times in the fact that sustainability is not an option anymore. It's a must-have. It can't be something that you think about on a secondary basis. It has to be part of your DNA.
We have about 4 minutes left, Steve, but I just can't help but comment to back up your earlier point. Nutritious being number two is very exciting, but of course there's incredible confusion about nutrition, right? I mean, what is nutritious? And plant-based, but if plant-based is loaded with 100 ingredients and it's heavily processed and lots of fats, saturated fats. So that too is a big educational opportunity, right? If you do have a truly superior nutritious story, and Carlotta showed some really cool examples, that's a big win for folks. So this is a great slide.
Yeah, no, I would definitely agree. And here we can see what's growing. What's growing the most: organic, natural, and allergens.
Wow.
That's what's growing. This is what's important. But you also need to take into account what's growing,
Yeah, that's,
because this is what consumers are checking more and less on labels. It's a different question. So this is specifically what they're checking on labels.
and
So-
viewers, again, should underscore here Steve's point. This is general population, so.
Correct.
Yeah.
So this would even be higher if you looked at natural channel shoppers.
Right, right.
Chemicals, I want to get to some COVID questions first. Things that are
Yeah, we got
rising.
about 3 minutes or so.
Yep. Let's see. Let me get to some COVID. Well, one thing that I think is worth mentioning is, we're in the world of natural and organic, but if you specifically think about organic among general population, there's some skepticism out there still, even after all these years. 50% of America thinks it's products that are labeled as organic or not. That's a problem, even when we have government seals. And it's a little bit lower on natural, but you just need to keep that in the back of your mind, is that that's very important. Let's see, store brands, the mention of sustainable ag or regenerative ag is definitely part of what you should be mentioning. I mentioned that before. Here's where you get into a good conversation. It could be a whole separate session, Gary, on how you balance personal health with the health of the planet in a brand mission, brand values, brand name, brand targeting, whatever it may be. Because some companies tend to focus more on personal health, others tend to focus more on the health of the planet. Some are in the middle. It's almost like a continuum. You need to figure out where you play. Just a couple closing slides on COVID. These are similar to what Carlotta talked about. The numbers are even a little bit higher because this is Gen Pop. I think the one slide, but more conscious of my health and wellness. What's interesting here is it's higher by age. So it's the antithesis of what we were talking about earlier in terms of what portion of the population is driving growth.
Yeah.
It's the opposite here.
And as usual, women are smarter than men.
Correct. Yeah. Well, we think we run the house, but we don't. That's a whole nother webinar series, Gary. See, I just came up with 2 new ones for you. Okay. I'm eating more healthy food options. Well, we have some bifurcation happening in America here. We have either half of America or all of America lying, or this is probably more realistic. You basically have about a third of the population eating more healthy and a third eating more junk. The problem we've seen is those that are eating more junk and comfort food are those that were less healthy to begin with. So it's accelerating the unhealthy group, while the healthier groups have maintained more in line with what's going on. There's obviously been a significant growth in immune boosting foods, and just in close, it's been a challenging, to say the least, year. It's been almost a year to date that here in Pennsylvania, where I'm located, was basically on lockdown, and we're having all kinds of conversations. We would welcome to connect with anybody about the impact of social isolation. So how can your foods and beverages, how can your different products, how can your targeting and so on help deal with social isolation? Now, you may think that would be off topic, but it's not.
Yeah.
Uh,
Exactly.
so natural and organic continued, just how can you, I guess in closing, how can we take the challenges we're all facing today, but turn them into opportunities, but be prepared to pivot back at some point in time to some sense of normalcy.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Well
I
said.
guess that's a good close.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. Thank you both. So we have a bunch of questions. I'm going to let Elliot take the lead, but I want to underscore to everybody, there's a lot here. This session is being recorded. As Carlene said in the chat, it will be live. It takes about a day. So you'll see it tomorrow. You can go back over, and obviously you'll have the contact information for both of our excellent speakers. Elliot, you got some questions?
Yeah, we got a lot of great questions here. I'm going to collapse a couple just to in the interest of time. But Manoli has a question I'm going to add to his. But first is he mentioned, Steve, that he was surprised to see the drop in Boomer and Mature's viewpoint on healthy, balanced lifestyle. Do you have any indications what's driving that change?
You mean the lack of the increase? The lack of the increase is because they're already doing more for health and wellness. It's the acceleration of personal health and healthy aging among a younger group, because let's just say we're all 50 years old. We look back 30 years from now, health and wellness didn't even enter our mind. But today's 20-year-old, it does. So it's just moving back.
Okay, so on that slide, it's not a deprioritization of healthy or balanced lifestyle. It's just not a growth of importance that you're seeing in the others.
Right. It's because they had already adopted a whole range of healthy behaviors. So to go up is harder if you're starting from ground zero. Yeah.
And then the tie to that, unrelated but related, you talked about the fact that this alpha generation, this 12 plus, are going to be the future activists, the ones that'll go on strike if what's at the table isn't aligned with what's informing that data. What's the information that you're seeing that gives some confidence to the fact that we have this next generation of advocates?
That's based on some current research and some additional work we're doing among moms, and we're also getting a Forbes article together on moms, the most forgotten heroes of the pandemic. And I think moms is a whole nother conversation to have, as it even ties back with what Carlotta is talking about, this whole notion of respect and kindness and diversity and so on. Moms have bared the brunt of the pandemic. They're still leading the household. They're still doing everything that mom would normally do. Plus they got the kids driving them crazy. Plus they got the pandemic. Plus they can't see their friends. Plus, it just steamrolls. So I think that's, and we just got some new research in on what's happening, and we're going to see a lot of moms exiting the workforce, which is also going to have an impact. Don't think all these things are ancillary to your business, because if we think back, the reason convenience is a number one or part of the top 4 reasons why consumers buy food and beverage is because women entered the workforce. Now we have some women, significant numbers, that will be leaving the workforce. So that aligns perfectly with I'll just say non-packaged foods. And I'm talking in general, but
yeah. I'm going to switch and kick it over to you, Carlotta. So you might want to come off mute. And this one's from Max. He was one of the early entrance questions. And is there any data on what percentage of the supplement market CBD now accounts for? I know it's not an insignificant segment of the industry any longer, according to Max. Just any thoughts there?
Yes, I can share a little bit of that. One thing I'll add about the moms, I think really important for us as an industry to think about what we're doing to support, not parents in general, but especially moms. I was looking at some stats for International Women's Day. Women still do the majority of household work in their houses. Luckily, I'm not one of those. I have a husband who does a lot of that, but during COVID, the average woman added an hour to 90 minutes of extra work a day, just with the, kids being home all the time, extra school work. And so I think it's interesting for us to think about how do we develop empathy for those consumers and what are we doing to best support them. But on the CBD front, I should have mentioned that because, obviously in 2018, 2019, this is the category everyone was watching and the growth was just astronomical. All CBD products, topicals, supplements, foods and beverages grew 114% in 2019. Whereas last year, all hemp CBD products actually sales decreased 2%. So to go from that large of a swing, it was one of those things that a lot of headwind hit the category. Certainly it's the fact that I think consumers were starting to pay more attention to how they were spending money in that category. We saw so many new companies flood in and then many are no longer there. But there even were, and I'd be interested to know if Steve has research on this, but some of our consumer research shows that there's starting to be some changing consumer perceptions around the efficacy of supplement products and of CBD products. And CBD supplements are now about a $580 million category. So it is a sizable category, but still relatively small compared to the $56 billion supplement market. And CBD supplement sales actually dropped 6% in 2020. We expect some of that to rebound, but not to the levels we saw prior.
We're seeing about, based on last year's research, about 10% of American households using CBD or hemp oil. We put the two together because consumers, there's mass confusion on what the definition is and so on. So that's 25 million Americans. That was up from 3% the prior year. So it's basically from a penetration standpoint, again, up 300+%.
Interesting. I'm going to keep just knocking out questions, Gary.
Yeah.
Francisco has a good one here, and I think it's something that is topical to a lot of the brands who are probably listening in here, and that is, what's the data showing regarding consumers looking for new brands to try online versus on the shelves? And are consumers behaving differently now than they were in the past when they shop online or look for new brands versus at retail? And that's to either of you. So I'll let you, you'll duke it out to see which one of you comes up with the.
I can start first. I'll give you the perspective on it. Basically, from a macro perspective, consumers never liked shopping. Shopping was a chore, right? Now it's a chore plus everything mixed with stress and anxiety and so on. So my goal when I go shopping is to get in and out as fast as I can. That decreases impulse shopping. That decreases the ability to try new brands. Hence the importance of e-commerce, which has given consumers the ability to go in and research a product and look at the ingredient list and look at whatever it may be, social values and missions and so on, and make more informed decisions. That is where a huge opportunity exists, because consumers, again, are not spending the time. I think that'll come back. But we got to give it some time in terms of going in and looking at a bottle and so on. You just want to grab something and run.
Yeah, there are less treasure hunting going on. Carlotta, anything to add to that?
Well, I I would just share what Betsy McGinn shared in the chat to the panelists that we're seeing huge discoverability online and consumers now shopping past the first page, which wasn't the case previously. 70% previously bought from page 1, and 78% of searches on Amazon do not start with a brand name, which means consumers are looking in categories. And that seems to reflect how I just even think about my own shopping patterns changing online over the last year. And I'm embarrassed to say how much time I spend discovering new products online, especially through social media.
I'm going to jump in a question here from Larry, and I'm going to go with just his first question, and because I think it's interesting, and that is, and probably go to you, Steve. Where does local rank in terms of consumer drivers?
Local is right up there on the top of the list. And it's not just food and beverage. It's all kinds of other industries too, especially with COVID, support your small business, whatever it may be. But even back in the days of Whole Foods growth and their whole notion of being grown on local, local is in the eye of the beholder. So we need to take that into account. Local could mean community to some people. It could mean my state. I want my blueberries from the state of Maine or whatever it is. Local could be your region, or local can be U.S. I don't mean to avoid the question, but I mean, there's some products, for example, we'll never be able to make enough oranges. We can't grow cantaloupe. I mean, you can go through the supply chain, but the importance of local has been turbocharged. It's on hyper mode now. And the key will be to retain that sense of localness, because that's where this whole industry started. And it would it'd be nice to see a little bit of a uptick back, and just keeps up.
Steve, is it? I mean, we talk about that local. We talk a lot about it from a supply chain, but what about from a brand or business? Where it's domiciled, is it local business? Is that differentiated at all between local product or locally sourced, or is that all?
Well, that goes back to my definition of local. Is it my state or my country? It also goes back to, and Walmart's dealing with this now in terms of the money that they've dedicated to made in the USA. Well, what does made in the USA mean? Does that mean the parts were basically made in China, shipped here, and we assembled them? So it's sort of the same thing in food and beverage. So are we talking about all the ingredients being grown in the US? For a variety of products, it's not physically possible. You'll never go back to the value equation, and you'll never be able to compete. So it's a quandary. Gary can speak to it from a dairy basis is fine, but when he wants to get sugar in Vermont, beyond using syrup, there's some very limited choices. So
yeah, it's even harder in New Hampshire.
Yeah, exactly. I'm gonna keep cranking and
Keep going, yeah.
turn these into rapid fire a bit, just in the interest of time. Carlotta, coming to you, for the natural and organic food and bev, what was the expected growth coming into 2021 prior to COVID? Was what was the growth rate?
5%, right?
Yeah.
So that was the expected versus the 13 experienced.
In 2019, natural, organic, and functional food and beverage growth was at 4.8% in 2019, and so we were expecting something similar for 2020.
More than doubled.
Organic store brands. So there's a question from Robert, going back to USDA. Have the organic store brands been growing and question mark, and would that not explain the flattening, especially milk and dairy? And I'll let Ida
Private,
review.
private label organic. In other words, more value organic.
Yeah, as a store brand, private label, own brand.
I don't have the data, but private label has been another sort of success story of 2020. Has done very, very well, organic as well as just other private label. And it's, again, it's part of consumers, stocking up their pantries, shopping to mostly cook at home. And so, it's something to pay attention to. It's also interesting how some of the store brands, I think about like the Thrive Market and everything they've been able to do with their private label brands and the innovation. I mean, the amount of innovation in those Thrive Market product sets is, I mean, it rivals anything you would see from branded products. And so I think we're going to continue to see a lot of competition from private label, but the level of innovation could jump as well.
It's even how they're defining them, and the operational term owned brands. I mean, they're really they're really treating them as brands that have brand equity and so forth. Steve,
and then there's just a couple other things on private label. Sorry, I'll just talk really quick. It depends upon the level that the brand is based on too. You have organics that are cheaper than conventional products. You have products that are at par, and you have some that are premium. So that all needs to be taken into account too. And we've also seen a difference between organic private label house brands on perimeter categories compared to center store.
Mm-hmm.
There's two totally different things going on there.
I'm going to jump into this question here from Joel. I'm going to apologize because I'm going to skip to part 2 of your question because just in the interest of time. And that, can you highlight the different segments that constitute the natural food buyers beyond just the generational composition? So, demographic, psychographic characteristics, et cetera.
And this will have to be our last one. So either of you feel free.
Well, I can certainly address that. We break the population down into one of 5 groups through a segmentation study that or a segmentation that we've been using for 20 years, and I think it's a very good question. And I'll just pop up one slide on the go here for you to see here. And it's not all consumers are the same. You're exactly correct. So we have a portion of the population that's called a well-being on the left. They represent about a quarter of the population. They drove organics to mainstream, and mainstream would be those 3 middle groups: the food actives, the magic bullets, and the fence sitters. So they drove plant-based, right? And they're basically broken into a couple subgroups. You have a very active group in the middle. The magic bullets in the middle here, they represent 1 out of 5 Americans. They are the least healthy. So this is not a health continuum. This is a health motivational continuum. So this is a group that has the highest usage of supplements, OTC and RX, for example, highly opportunistic for functional foods, for example, for diabetic products, whatever it may be. Fence sitters is a huge opportunity. They want to do more. They're typically a secondary target for many companies. They have the highest composition of kids, and so on. So
yeah.
I can include this as an addendum to the slide that you send out. It's a very good question. It's typically part of most client work that we do.
Yeah. Carlotta, any last word from you?
No, just thank you so much and best of luck to everyone. We have a bright future. I'm excited to see what we do.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Listen,
thanks.
I want to thank you all. That was a veritable fire hose of data. And there's going to be a lot of people going over these slides. Normally, at the end of these webinars, I have traditionally attempted to summarize. It's become really hard the last couple of weeks. I'll just say you just nailed it Carlotta. I mean, the data is very encouraging. From expected 5% up 13. I mean, extraordinary. Anything with the word immunity on it, obviously in the supplements, up 52%. E-com sales growth, as Betsy and company shared with us a couple of weeks ago, we know that. Some of Carlotta's, your outstanding examples were really good. I mean, those are exciting for people to see, and I think everyone should follow up on some of those best practices. The Renewal Mills one is just superb. And as you said, let's not forget, this is a time of dynamic social change. This isn't just about nutrition, though Steve made it clear that nutrition has become paramount. But this is, we have a long way to go on diversity. As you said, it goes all the way to the leadership in our sector. We're still predominantly white guys, as you are sitting here with three of us. But Steve, you began with a terrifying, but I think very, I think people understand that there's been a net weight gain of 10 pounds for every American. That's one hell of a lot of pounds. So the turbocharged opportunities for weight loss in the coming months is, I think anybody who didn't hear that one needs to hear it again. That is a real actionable item. But as you said, and Carlotta, you did too, there's a big talk-do gap, right? I mean, on the one hand, we're interested in all these habits. On the other hand, we're struggling, we're stressed. COVID, we're all going crazy. We want the kids out of the house. The kids want us out of the house. And, and so the talk-do gap is huge. As ever, seeing that millennials, but you're right to remind us, millennials now are into the 40s, are driving these trends. And I loved your point, Steve, that the organic opportunity is really frequency. And Carlotta and I were scribbling notes to each other as co-members of the Organic Voices Board. We get that strong shifts from global to local. And then again, this really critical point for the first time in 2020, nutrition exceeding convenience. Now, with the caveat that nutrition is in the eyes of the beholder also. So thank you for just those and so many other insights, and Elliot for your excellent question managing of the Q&A. Carlene, if you could put up the closing slides here, I'll just do a quick wrap. Just to remind everybody, these are we have actually 3 more webinars. I'm just waiting on final confirmation on March 31st. Next week, if you're looking to raise money, this is a great opportunity for you to hear from 2 of the very active funds out there, sort of somewhere between angel and institutional investing. And then a week later, we will be talking to Costco and Thrive. Carlotta mentioned Thrive earlier, and that should be fascinating. And I will just tell you, we've got a couple of really exciting retailers that we're lining up for March 31st. And we'll continue into April, but we're just now nearing the end of this. If you have feedback, if you have ideas for us on topics, again, we always appreciate it. And like I said at the beginning, if you have a product or service that you would like to make available to all of your fellow attendees, you can go to hirschberginstitute.com for details and send us your proposition. And if you can make it in less than 5 minutes, we'll put you on at the beginning of one of the upcoming webinars. Again, you can sign up for our emails. The Institute itself will take place, as what was mentioned in the last slide, first week of May, and you'll see that going live very shortly. Great opportunity for you to bring your case, your pitch, for the kind of help that you got in spades today from this excellent, excellent panel. So with that, again, want to thank you, Carlotta, thank New Hope Network for joining us as our partner. Steve, great to have you. Now the problem with for both of you is we're not going to let you get away. We'll have you back for sure. And Elliot, as ever, appreciate your great facilitation. And I just have to say, there's right away on the chat, somebody, Denise, who lost 15 pounds during COVID, walking and no eating out. So, let's go here. I mean, Carlotta and I were on a call earlier today with somebody who lost 25 pounds. So we can do this. As you said, Carlotta, we're all wonderful, wonderful, privileged place, really, in this natural space. And it's in no small part thanks to excellent resource people like you three. So thank you. And we will see you all next week. Stay safe, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.